in each instant when we are upset, particularly with large items in our lives that seem to be like you can't get out of it. There's no way out. And then there's the small things too. But they're each a place where if we bring our willingness to have it be seen another way, and that was the desire to see something differently, because you want to be rid of the sense of littleness, unworthiness, a sense of depression, whatever it is, the desire to want to see it another way is sometimes more than enough to engage the Holy Instant and the Holy Spirit. It engages it, and you need to have that engagement so that it has the opportunity where time and space seem to collapse, and things that you would not have thought could have happened to create an outcome that brings you peace, because that's what it's ultimately for. It's an outcome that brings you peace, contentment, a recentering, a sense of, I know myself again. Today's reading is from chapter 27, The Healing of the Dream, and we're reading from section 4, The Quiet Answer. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict, there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible and to ensure no answer will be plain. A problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways. And what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer in another light. You are in conflict. Thus, it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Yet, if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved, for what He wills already has been done. Well, interestingly enough, it's saying that, there must be thus it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, because we are in basically a state of conflict, in our lives. So what do you think this conflict is that they're speaking of? Because it's in quietness that all things are answered.
Well, I was struck by that first line about quietness, because I've said several times that I didn't think that meditation is the key. Okay, mm-hmm. I've just said that because that sends the student on a journey of learning to be a meditator.
Right.
And I don't think the Course in Miracles is to teach you to be a meditator in the way that we understand it. I don't think that's really a part of it. Yet, there is a toolkit, and calming the mind is part of it. So the thing that I thought of was, well, it's implying here that meditation is critical. And then I thought, well, the quietness it's talking about is not my quietness. It's the quietness of the mind. And so I thought about the second line of the Yoga Sutra, which is yogas chitta vritti nirodha, which means yoga is the cessation of thought waves. Mm. So, in other words, the mind is like, you've discussed it even before in other videos. We've talked about looking at the mind as like a pond. Mm-hmm. And let's say you have the moon reflected in the pond. It's a classic analogy or metaphor, where the moon, being the self, is reflected in the pond. And when wind, which would be thoughts, blows across the pond,
you can't have clarity.
It breaks up into an image.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And all you see is a diamond scattering. Mm-hmm. And you can't see the self. So the goal of yoga is to calm the thought waves. But, so that's what I thought of, and I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying I thought of that when we read this. And so you said, what's the conflict? And the conflict is that we're in the dualistic context requires me to have contrasts, and contrasts force disruption. Contrasts are conflicts. The conflict between light and dark, it's a conflict. And you say, well, let's get rid of all conflicts. Well, in this world, if you get rid of all conflicts, contrasts, you can't see anything.
Right. Right.
Nothing is clear. You can't see anything without a contrast between light, dark, or sharp, focus, out of focus. We require these things.
And there's this thing about having some resistance or whatever it is, that thing that polishes the stone, that thing that is, that allows in my states of upset, if I didn't have the opposite, almost like I wouldn't know that I needed to do something about it. I mean, I wouldn't know that there was another way even. I would just keep it in constant conflict, I guess. I don't know.
The other thought, the line it's another line out of the Yoga Sutras, which is the first line of the second chapter of the Yoga Sutras, is tapa svadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani kriya yoga. In other words, the yoga of friction.
Yeah, friction.
The yoga of contrasts. In other words, it requires tapas, which is heat. You build it, and now you've got to understand what heat is, and there's different explanations for what heat is. So you have tapas svadhyaya, self-knowledge. Heat, the way I look at it, is inner heat results from the quest for self-knowledge. But in the end, that's a dog chasing its tail. And so Ishvara Pranidhana is giving it over to God.
Which is, it's going to go on to, in a way, it's going to talk about all answers are now, which only happens in that space of the holy instant.
By the way, I want to throw one other thing in about all the yoga, the two esoteric yoga references.
Okay.
The Sanskrit. I think the Course in Miracles gives a more brilliant, usable context. I think the Course in Miracles, if you want a guru, another yoga term, let's say, if you want a teacher, the book functions as a teacher, and then it also gives you direction to the Holy Spirit and or Jesus, if you even want to draw the distinction,
yes,
for that teacher. So in terms of, let's say, the Yoga Sutras being a great way of calming the mind or learning meditation, I say a proper understanding of A Course in Miracles, from my experience, is far better. Right. I mean, there's no...
And speaking of teaching, I mean,
no comparison.
In the Course, it says that you're teaching in every moment by what you are being. So if you're all anxious and everything else, and you're anxious and afraid of, let's say you found out someone close to you is ill, and now you're all upset and you're thinking, well, that cancer's just going to take them out or whatever it is, and so you. In other words, you conspire with that other person that it's real. In other words, her anxiety and your anxiety become sort of the same and everything else. Well, then you're teaching that illness and fear go together and that there is no way out of it. So at what we be in the world with another is what we are teaching.
Well, I've read so many different references around the Course. I'm not in touch anymore with what I've read, so I don't know where this comes from. But there really can be no teaching at all without self-healing. There's only one thing to do, is to be healed. There's nothing else to teach or do or say or pursue than to heal my problem.
Right. And then you become a great teacher, because in that healing, you're healing the world, which is all the projections that we laid on it.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else? So I don't know. It does say that we are in conflict and that God didn't leave us there. He is going to give us a way out. So let's just move on.
Okay. Paragraph 2. Thus, it must be that time is not involved, and every problem can be answered now. Yet, it must also be that in your state of mind, solution is impossible. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. It is here that all your problems should be brought and left. Here they belong, for here their answer is. And where its answer is, a problem must be simple and be easily resolved. It must be pointless to attempt to solve a problem where the answer cannot be. Yet just as surely it must be resolved if it is brought to where the answer is. So we go back to the
holy instant.
Let's go back to the moon in the pond.
Okay.
So we have a shattering of diamond effects on the water, and somebody says, "What are you looking at?" I said, "I don't know. I'm looking at a shattered image. I'm looking at diamonds on the surface of the water. I don't know what it is."
Right.
Only by the water calming can I see
The image.
a simple image, the simplicity. Now the thing is, we already said that contrast is required for this place. That's the severe limitation of quote-unquote meditation. Even if you're doing 20 minutes a day, twice a day, an hour a day, twice a day, whatever, it's a severe limitation because to function in the world, your mind has to be scattered. It has to be scattered.
I think that we function better when we're in states of clarity, not in fractured.
What I'm saying is a different level of I'm saying that perceptual reality requires conflict. There's no way around it. It's not possible. In other words, the basket of tools I have available at this level, it said, it gives you another way.
Right.
Called the holy instant. Well, let's back off of the holy instant and say we're here. The bucket that I have available only has conflict in it. In other words, in order for me to see you, I have to see you set apart from your background. If I see you in the background running together, I got nothing. I'm blind.
Right. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the functional reality of living here requires conflict. And if I look into that that basket of tools of requisite conflict to lead me to peace, it's not possible. So that, in other words, when I do the yoga meditation, without the clarity of A Course in Miracles, you're hoping accidentally to run into the state of mind in which the answer is already there. But it's not telling you what it is. The Course is all about going directly to that place. Give up trying to calm your mind enough to get there, as though you can calm yourself down and come to the truth. Okay, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Okay, I got that.
What do you think?
I think I'll go with that.
Okay, so where I was just saying that when it says here, what I'm hearing it say is, as long as I keep trying to sharpen my toolkit of calm thinking, emotional control, coping with my flaws and my problems, I'm working inside of this. I'm working inside of a de facto conflicted realm.
You're using your ego to solve the problem.
Right.
And so that's not possible.
Right. However, we don't say I use my ego to wake up or tie my shoes, or I don't say I use my ego to see you against a background. I'm saying that in order to function here, and we don't think I'm an ego freak, I can see things.
Yeah, right.
We don't attribute that to the ego, and yet that is the palette for the ego to work in the world. And so that it's very, very easy to slide into that I require seeing, a halo of light on one side of your face, a shadow on the other side of your face in order to see you pop against the contrasting background. It's a short step to go from there to see me as different from evil people, or see me as different from people that are trying to attack me or damage me. It's a short hop to see that they are now the backdrop. They are something that I set myself up apart from.
Okay.
So in the Course, so I'm saying is it's not, as they say in the Tao, no blame. We're not blaming anybody for this. We're just saying in this world, it is conflicted by nature.
Right. And then it goes on to say that there is an answer. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already. Such is the holy instant.
Say something about that. Because It just laid some stuff on us here.
Right.
I mean, and in fact, I feel bad about wasting so much time saying this other stuff, because this is right here. Such is the holy instant.
Yeah, such is the holy instant.
Make sense out of this. What do you say?
Well, the holy instant is every instant. And the holy instant is available at every instant. But what it's saying here is that first of all, it leads up to that there's another state of mind in which the answer is already there. It said it was in a quiet state of mind. First of all, it also said that.
Right.
And then you say, well, how do I get to a quiet state of mind? I don't know how to shut it down, Again, I know that for anyone who's listening, there's only one way that I know, and that is to say, first of all, I don't know, and I can hand it over, and I will, in my little willingness, drop my judgment on the situation for a second. Okay, it's only asking for an instant to have availability to you in order to give you the opportunity to have another perception of situations. So, such as a holy instant, it is here that all your problems should be brought and left. And I guess brought and left, that's how I perceive, quote, doing that. If it's not really like there's a doing, because it's a complete undoing of what we normally do, which is to proceed with everything that the world is causing this conflict, this upset, this slight tremor of every single moment that isn't giving any clarity to that nice pond that we want to see the image on and get it a clear image. So if I'm supposed to bring all my problems should be brought and left. Okay, you have to recognize, first of all, that you're not in a state of peace. So therefore, there is something there that is bothering or isn't at peace. Let's just put it that way. So that means it's an opportunity to bring what you think might be there that is causing that to not have a clear pond so that you can see accurately, to bring it and leave it.
This creates some frustration for me, as I think it should create frustration for everybody.
Okay.
Because we're always said that. Leave your troubles at the door. Okay, that's one thing. The wise man said, when I walk in the house, I take all of my troubles and I put them on a hook. And I go in the house and I'm at peace. And
right.
And all my troubles are at the door. And then I go out. So now that's wonderful and wise. But a lot of my troubles, and we've discussed this at length, are based on temperamental, constitutional issues. Some people, their nerve endings are close to the surface. Now, I know it's a chicken and egg dynamic of whether your constitution or your temperament is creating the problems or the problems creating the temperament.
Right.
I know it's a chicken and egg thing, but there are people who are, what they call them in the 4 temperament theory or 3 temperament theory, whatever it is, phlegmatic. They're governed by, like, the phlegm is their fluid in this. That's why I call them phlegmatic, and they're heavy, they're oily, they're peaceful, they're good tempered. You've seen people like this.
Yes.
They didn't work to get there. It's the way they're built. Then you have this other temperament that's the choleric. They're like feisty and fiery, and they come at the problems, and they're triggery. Very different. It's 2 different temperaments. And so for the choleric type to say, I should be more phlegmatic, that's a nice goal, but you are choleric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So what is your solution about these?
Well, all I'm saying is that that's a situation I think that we have to address. So that when in other words, some people leaving their problems at the feet of the holy instant is going to feel very, very different. Let's say for a phlegmatic, it's a very, very different process.
Right.
They might say, hey, I do that all the time anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always kind of mellow and laid back. Whereas the choleric is saying, who's going to take care of it? If I don't run with it. So that they have different issues and values that are leading them. So I don't think anything in the Course in Miracles punishes anybody for their temperament, is my point of saying that.
Okay. I agree.
So I just want to erase that as a problem. I would just erase it, that if you're nervous and you're triggery and someone else is more mellow, it's not like the other person is already almost there and you got a long way to go. I think everybody has the same distance to go in the language of a Course.
Okay.
Okay, it's the holy instant is when this whole thing was created and the ego had an agenda. And that agenda was to fragment, 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 fragment. And that's the ego's thing. So you have a world of that shattered image. In the moon analogy, I don't know if this is correct or not, in that moon analogy, the ego's is to smooth those fragments until they're just so dominant that you have no possibility of ever getting an image of any kind. You just have scattered the reflections to the wind.
Okay, you're constantly moving the water.
Constant moving the water. The more movement, the better. And when God saw the Son of God, his Son, doing this project of a scattering effect that had no choice but to march into eternity as a scattering, he said, I'll fix it. I'm going to put a process in each possible fragment that draws them back together. And so that and that,
or it makes them recognize that they've
right.
never left the same body of water.
That process of drawing back together that each one has, instead of scattering out,
right.
that process of drawing back together, called the Holy Spirit, it's a unifying force. It's a unifying knowledge. It's a unifying energy, knowledge, so that any movement, it's not a simple movement. And it's, in other words, like you say, well, we put those two particles together. Now we got 10 billion to go. That's not the way it works. If you move towards one particle, in your mind you have moved towards all particles. That's the way it works.
Unification of all particles.
The unification of all particles is present in the smallest movement. So in the holy instant, you have all the shattered particles, and pervasive throughout it, spread smoothly with every possible event, possible conflict, possible contrast. There is that movement to the one. It's present at each and every juncture, and that is what the Course is calling, such is the holy instant. That's our escape. That's what we were given. That's all we have. Miracle is shorthand for this. The miracle is an experience of that movement to the one. It's an experience of it. And
right, and it's always from one particle to the other. In other words, a brother, the miracle involves this plane of existence where it's between, where the giver and receiver both receive together, whether or not they're aware of it or however that works. But it is that the Holy Spirit answers the problem by answering it for everyone, whoever's involved in the same moment. Whatever that problem was, it gets answered.
The holy instant exists without miracles. It doesn't need miracles. Miracles are my experience.
Yes,
miracles are an experience of the holy instant. They have nothing to do with being the holy instant.
Right.
So we have to be clear that a miracle, the feeling of the miraculous, has nothing to do with the presence of a holy instant.
That's just ever present.
That's necessary. So
right.
you're going to say, well, I had this holy instant when? No. Let's and then that gets into what part of the miracle is actually revelation, that kind of thing.
Right.
It gets into this terminology. And then we have forgiveness. And forgiveness exchanges a true situation for a false one. In other words, you have, I'm in a false situation, and forgiveness is, as you said, I don't know what I'm seeing, and it allows a true situation to be given to me, which would be the healing into the oneness. The healing, the atonement, is the healing into oneness. And that's, so the false situation of the scattering and the contrasting is healed into it. So that's the forgiveness, and you can see how that's a prerequisite, in a sense, I'm saying, of a miracle, to have an experience of the holy instant. But the holy instant doesn't need any of this stuff.
Right.
The holy instant And then you have the little willingness. And then so what I'm saying is this is your toolkit. The little willingness, forgiveness, the miracle, and the holy instant. The holy instant being all pervasive, the miracle being an experience, forgiveness being perhaps my only decision.
My function.
My function.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or no, the forgiveness is my only function, but the little willingness is the only thing I can bring to the picture.
Yes.
Truly.
Yeah. I always begin with the little willingness. That's where it begins.
So let's go back to it rather than jump ahead. I know it seems like surely we've already covered it. How do you leave your stuff with the holy instant? I went through all that because I don't think it has to be, do you have to feel like you've laid your burden down? There has to be, we've talked about this morning. We had a long conversation about your situation. Mm-hmm. And what I was starting to realize was that holy instants, the more you contemplate them and you look at your past and all this kind of stuff, they're everywhere.
Yes. In other words, that which seemed like a horrendous problem at the time happened to be with creditors, and I had a big debt and stuff, and it resolves its way. I'm not going to go into it here, maybe some other time, but at any rate, it resolved itself in such a way that when I backtracked and started to look at all the pieces that allowed for it to become my own personal miracle, all debts forgiven type of thing, that I couldn't have put it together.
Let me run through it, and you respond to what I put together, because I tend to. Okay. I think it's a great
story,
a great illustration.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so you're with a guy. We've covered it so many places. You're with a guy. It's your spiritual partner, the twin flames. You guys are going to storm the gates of heaven with your spiritual prowess. Right. Okay, right? That's what you're going to do. Now, what happens is he's like your other brain. You can't get away from him. He fills your head with his thoughts constantly. He's a controlling type personality.
Right.
So he leaves. He says, Toots, you are not picking up your end of the twin flame. I mean, half a flame is no flame at all. Okay. I'm going off to wherever, name your location, California, Wisconsin, Boise, wherever it is that he goes, Sun Valley. And he goes, you work out your stuff. And when you work out your stuff, we'll get together and we'll have this twin flame going. And you're crushed because you've been rejected as a spiritual partner. Yet, do you see? You only know it because you're crushed, right? It's depressing. Mm-hmm. That's a holy instant.
Right.
Why?
Because in that separation, I was actually able to get my own sort of mind back, but also I had no car, and I was living in such ways that, at any rate, it doesn't matter. And I had only my bicycle, and one day I'm pulling up into the driveway on my bicycle after riding 6 miles back and forth into town on my bicycle, which is what I did. And a woman pulls up and she says, are you Joanne? And I said, and she gave my last name and stuff. And I said, yes. And she goes, and she hands me a piece of paper and she goes, you've been served. And I was like, what?
Okay, now that's a disaster, right?
Yeah, it was a disaster.
That's a disaster. But that's a holy instant.
Right. But it doesn't seem like it's a holy instant.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make about the holy instant.
It's because so many things had to happen regarding that for it to get resolved.
If your man friend had been there and he's standing by your side,
now, I would
when
not
you get served the papers, what would have happened?
He would have got involved, and I would not have proceeded in the manner in which I would have.
And what did you do to proceed? I apologize for this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not always this way.
This is a good point, because things that don't feel like they could possibly be holy at all, they seem quite disturbing. And it's like I avoided the quote, the credit reaper for nearly 6 years because we lived such an alternative lifestyle and everything else. And we didn't have a real address, and we didn't have phones, and we didn't have anything really for a long time.
Well, and because of her, I'm going to call it anal retentive personality structure.
Right.
You dug into your past too quick. And you woke up the sentinel.
Yes.
And so the sentinel delivered the summons
because
to you.
he went to California to. Suddenly, I was like, wait a second. He's going to work on his real estate license. He's been like avoiding the creditors as well. And I was like, that means there must be a statute of limitations that's coming up. So I actually did a credit report on myself. And when I did that, it set off the sentinels and they found me. So
they found you.
Yes,
they found you. But now maybe okay. So I just want to make this case. The holy instant is not a moment where your eyes tear up and you say, God is beautiful. The holy instant is present in every instant of our lives. It's
leading me along to show me something.
They are all holy instants.
I don't understand it.
She's abandoned by her spiritual partner.
Yes.
But unless she had been abandoned by her spiritual partner, she would not have been able to think of an independent thought without his influence.
So I had my independent thoughts, and my independent thoughts.
So that's when the summons was brought.
Yes. It was brought.
And it was brought because of what you would consider a neurosis or a flaw or a jumping the gun on your part. Yeah. And yet, what happens next?
So I looked through all the documentation, and so ironically, I kept all my bills because I thought someday I'm probably going to have to pay the karma for this. And so I knew when the last one was for this particular creditor, and when I last paid, and all those kinds of things, which you need to know in order to recreate the situation and know whether or not the statute of limitations are up. Well, it turned out that I laid it all on. I still had an altar. I laid it all there, and I said, if it's my turn to have to pay back, I will. I'm leaving it. It's like, God, it's in your hands, and if not, then it says fine. It's close, though. I mean, I knew that the statute of limitations were close. So I went and saw a bankruptcy lawyer. I told him I thought that I missed the statute of limitations. I said, I calculated this a couple of different times. Looks like they missed me by 2 weeks. And he looked at it, and he said, I think you're right. So I said, 2 weeks. Who'd have thought? It might have even been 1 week. I don't know. It was very close. And so I got all the information, and he says, I'll tell you what. Here's all the information for Oregon, which is where I was living at the time, for that particular thing that you would need to know what the statutes were and all that kind of stuff. Well, ironically, when I looked at the paperwork that was given me earlier, I noticed that the notice went to another Joanne in New York first. So they were delayed by almost a month.
They woke up on time. They had you nailed.
Yeah.
That's the point. They had you because you woke them up.
Yeah, and so all the documentation, they were looking for me, and they went to someone else
They went to the wrong
another
Joanne
one. They went
Miles.
to me in New York, because I'm from Connecticut, so they thought that's where it was.
Okay, so pause there. That's what I'm going to say is that the miracle as a reconstruction of the time-space continuum.
Right, as a story within this dream. Yeah.
That's a timeline shift.
Yeah.
So if Joanna, our Joanna said, what feature of the entire story, it wasn't you're writing, you're crafting a letter, it wasn't you're going to the judge and doing this, it wasn't Bill leaving, it wasn't any of these things. It was the fact that those guys chose to go after the wrong girl.
Yeah.
That was what did it. That was
God bless her. I don't know what she had to put up with.
So miraculously, I'm trying to make a distinction between miracles and holy instance and forgiveness.
Right.
Because right now you've got a situation. This is the part that blows my mind. Okay, blows mine. Is that I've always think I say the holy instant. That sounds lovely. I would like to have a lot of holy instants. Well, wait no longer, Phil. Every instant is a holy instant. Every instant is a holy instant. In other words, you made your personality wasn't up to the spiritual task of your spiritual partner. Okay,
Right.
so that I'm just talking, right?
Yeah.
You're messed up. So he says in his mind, he goes, "Hey, Toots, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. And you get your stuff together." Well, he wouldn't have gone away if she wouldn't have had that personality flaw.
Right.
Okay, so that's what got him out of the picture. That's when these people come. Bad idea, right? You spent all this time under the radar, and now, they found me because you jumped the gun based, again, on a personality structure that maybe is too curious about detail.
Yes.
You jump on it, they show up, and now you're going to be on the line for $20,000 or something. You know,
Yes,
right?
right.
That doesn't sound good.
No, I know.
Somewhere in that process, somewhere in there. That's what we went through this morning. I said I was grilling her just like this morning. I was grilled her all morning. It's amazing. This was so great.
Tell me.
It's so great.
Tell me more. Tell me more. It's like, okay.
I'm saying, okay, I said, when did your mind change? I'm going, when? I said, this is important. It's important to find out when your mind changed so that we can find out where's the holy instant. And
where's the miracle?
Yeah. And what I started to realize was the holy instant was almost every situation she went through that was traumatic and difficult.
Yeah.
That turns out each one was a space maker. Each one. In other words, the structure of reality was such that at every juncture of difficulty that you experienced, it put you in a situation.
Well, it says that the Holy Spirit rearranges time and space for the miracle. Okay, I do not know what that means. But in this instance, it did rearrange it so that it worked out.
But that's the amazing thing. It's like the miracle. I'm thinking, please correct me, is a little bit like maybe not the icing on the cake. Maybe it's the cake and the icing. Maybe it's the whole thing. The miracle is the whole thing.
Right.
But that the miracle is necessary for me to have an experience
Right.
of the holy instant. Because I have a holy instance everywhere, there has to be some means, and I won't get a miracle without the little willingness.
Right.
And without forgiveness.
Right.
I,
Yeah. Right. You want?
What do you think?
There has to, I had to. Well, there was literally a laying down. I literally laid down the whole situation on what I called my altar at the time and said, "It's yours." So that was my willingness. The willingness was like, I accept the consequences of my actions. Let it be. Whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. And then I was given. When I went to the bankruptcy lawyer, first of all, he doesn't charge me anything. I just, because he's not really going to be working anything out. He goes, I think you have everything you need. And he copied all of the legalese that I needed. And I'd been an administrative assistant many, many times in my life, I knew how to construct legal-like letters and letters in general. And I did. And so when that happened, I said, well, I'm going to write this letter. And then I had to meet with a mediator, and I did. I had all the dates, I had all the times, I had all the stuff that I needed, and all the legalese in the letter that said they missed it by 2 weeks. I had to go to the mediator, and the creditors showed up the first time with the mediation. I had the letter, I gave it to the creditors, and I gave it to the mediator. And all they did was get so mad at me, saying that they'll see me in court. It shook me to my bones. And I was like, okay, I'll see you in court, not knowing whether or not I had it or not. Because
they were trying to get you on the hook by agreeing to anything.
Yeah, because once you say, yes, I'm guilty.
If you said, I will give you a penny, they would say, mission accomplished, we're under contract.
As soon as you give anything towards that debt, you're back, it reopens it, and it's done. At any rate, so I wrote the letter.
So you didn't give in.
I didn't.
So we go back
in spite of my fears.
We go back to the little willingness requires somehow. Now, you said it doesn't require it. These are the qualifications of a teacher.
Yes, the qualifications.
Trust, honesty, tolerance, gentleness, joy, defenselessness, generosity, patience, faithfulness, and open-mindedness. Now, I'm not here to necessarily peel those open. I'm just saying, in a sense, it was courageous for you to not cave in and say, how small of a payment can I make?
Right.
You didn't do it.
No.
Something got into you that said, I'm not going to do that. This is what I'm trying to, what's the anatomy of this? You were already being a teacher of the Course, already through these characteristics of honesty, trust. I don't know where the tolerance and gentleness and all this other stuff, but anyway, there's a certain amount of courageousness.
I was very professional with them. I just said, yes, you'll see me in court. And I was shaking on the inside. And then when they left, the mediator looked at the letter and he goes, I don't know. I think you might be right. So he took it and he gave it to the judge. And weeks went by because I wasn't sure if it nailed it or not. Because there's always a sense that maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a lawyer. I'm standing outside the courtroom door on my day, and I'm like, okay, here's my whatever it is, comeuppance for and everything else. And I finally knocked on the door, and he was still putting on his black robe and everything. I was like, oh yeah, come on in. And I didn't see anyone around. And I said, okay. It's dumb and innocent, I guess. I walk up to him, and he goes, wow. He goes, great letter. I see you got yourself a lawyer. And I said, no, I wrote it. And he was surprised. And it was like, wow, even better. And he goes, yeah, it's you're clear. It's been dismissed. And that was my miracle. So the full recognition after that felt like the miracle. That all the things that I still had felt extremely little when this other partner had left me and everything else, and I thought I'm not worthy. I don't know where my own mind is and everything else. And the process allowed me to see that no, I'm worthy and God loves me.
No, but have we yet? Oh, yeah, we did, because you were pulling weeds. And you went into the emergency room with your pain and side stitch that was so extreme.
Yeah,
that was all before all this.
Yeah, that was all before all this.
So what I'm trying to say is what are the preconditions for the miracle? And how can I identify the holy instant? Because it sounds to me like the holy instant, and I got this from the last section as well, the holy instant is not a good time had by all. The holy instant, it doesn't say it's a great, joyful, it says, given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. It doesn't say anything about joy or happiness or peace or freedom.
It gave me knowledge.
State of mind.
Yeah. And
what was that state of mind? This is what I'm trying to get at. I don't mean to whip the dead horse, but what is that state of mind that this holy instant represents in there?
Well, and all I know for myself is that each instant, each thing that happened was a surrender into each thing. I had to surrender in front of the bankruptcy lawyer. I had to surrender into the fact that I now have this document. I didn't say, not my deal. I'm going to just try to avoid this one more time or anything else. I looked at it all and I said, time's up.
And what enabled all this, what enabled it was the tragic loss of your spiritual partner. That's what enabled it.
Right. So it all seemed...
Because these could rise to the surface. Trust, honesty, tolerance, gentleness, joy, etc. They could rise to the surface of your mind.
Right.
Because if he had been there, he would have been on the surface of your mind.
Right. Okay. So yes, and he is my other, which means my egoic thought system that keeps me in check. So we create these other beings in our lives based on our own thought systems. So when he left, I was able to tap into the whole desire during all of this was, please let me see me in another light, in another way. Because I had become so depressed and so lost in who and what I was by that point that I actually didn't know my way out. So this process helped me to regain a sense of self, which was interesting. It seemed traumatic at the time, but it did helped me regain a sense of self and that I'm worthy, that God loves me. And by this time, I'd also met Phil, and he helped me see that I'm not a jerk for living my life the way I had. So all of that was necessary for me to feel the love of God again, because I felt like I'd lost it. I lost the love of God. I felt abandoned. And yet I was the only one who did the abandoning. So all of this is to say is that the holy instant is available all the time, even in what seems to be not the answer for your life, because the answer for our life is self-knowledge. It is the knowledge of the truth of who and what we really are, not some other kind of answer. It's not that, yes, I got a, quote, miracle out of it for me, that I didn't have to go through any other process but have this debt dismissed. I'd already been in purgatory for 6 years anyway, so maybe that was it. Anyway, so in each instant when we are upset, particularly with large items in our lives that seem to be like you can't get out of it, there's no way out. And then there's the small things too. But they're each a place where if we bring our willingness to have it be seen another way, and that was the desire to see something differently, because you want to be rid of the sense of littleness, unworthiness, a sense of depression, whatever it is. The desire to want to see it another way is sometimes more than enough to engage the Holy Instant and the Holy Spirit. It engages it, and you need to have that engagement so that it has the opportunity where time and space seem to collapse, and things that you would not have thought could have happened to create an outcome that brings you peace, because that's what it's ultimately for. It's an outcome that brings you peace, contentment, a recentering, a sense of, I know myself again. That's what it's all for. And that happened in this particular scenario for me. You have anything else?
Yeah, just let it go. Let it go at that.
Okay.
You could go on and on.
I know, but there's my story. I give many stories, so to say. Okay, paragraph 3. Attempt to solve no problems but within the holy instant's surety. For there the problem will be answered and resolved. Outside there will be no solution, for there is no answer there that could be found. Nowhere outside a single, simple question is ever asked. The world can only ask a double question. One with many answers can have no answers. None of them will do. It does not ask a question to be answered, but only to restate its point of view. So that's in the ways of the world. In the ways of the world are questions that cannot be answered. Like, I don't know, in that instance, I don't know what the question was, but my question was not in relationship to whether or not I was really owed or not, I had to pay or not pay this
Okay, I'm going to tell you,
thing.
in any given instant, you had choices to contact the two-dimensional reality of this matrix. In other words, the place that the ego established for us to make sense in fragmentation.
Right.
Okay? At any moment. So man friend leaves, you're by yourself, poor me, and let's say you go, oh, well, let's say he leaves and you get served the papers. You get a chance to lean on big, strong guy who knows everything, right? And you give him a call and you start brainstorming with him.
Yeah.
Wow, that would have been a disaster.
Yes, it would have.
So you didn't do that because you were calling on trust, honesty, tolerance. In other words, you went into the holy instant itself. You sank into the moment instead of looking at it as a way of endearing yourself by asking the question and then being browbeaten again, instead of using it to get back in your relationship, which you were crushed about.
Yes.
Okay? You would get back into the relationship with that instead of doing that, you said, no, I'm going to go in. I'm going into the moment. I'm going into the holy instant. I'm going into the instant. And if I go into the instant, it becomes holy. It becomes, in other words, within every situation, God, and it says in this, God provided the answer to the problem within every instant.
Right.
If I go horizontally, in that case, if you now, or if the people had said you owe, and you could have said, well, let's be practical about this. I don't want them to, haul me into whatever. So what's the minimum payment that I can get? Then you would have had to go get a job, and it would have been a disaster. Each step along the way, without you being free to be yourself, and that self that that you were free to be was very flawed, but had qualities where you honestly and trustfully were on your path.
Yeah.
You're rewarded. You're rewarded for being on your path because you didn't call the man friend.
Right.
You didn't try to deal with the creditor. You didn't, there's so many ways along the
Yeah, no, I just proceeded and then I just said, well, whatever it's going to be. But the thing of it is that
So how do you say
we don't understand what is, okay, go ahead.
How do you solve the problem, but within the holy instant surety? That's what I'm trying to get to. How do you make sure that you're within the holy instant surety and you aren't using your own big fat brain to figure stuff out?
I don't know. It's to me, it only feels like surrender. It feels like I have turned it over. That's my willingness. I feel like I've turned it over to something greater than myself. I don't think that I have the answer, but I am willing to proceed. In other words, I take the next step and I see what happens. And I take the next step and I say, well, okay, I'll see what happens. And I leave it as sort of an open book that I'm turning a page and someone's writing it at the same time. They're writing the script that I wouldn't know what it was or how it was going to turn out. And so that's how I proceeded. And to me, it's kind of deciding to go blind into an area that, I don't know how court systems work. I don't know about, real legalese. I don't know about what creditors can and cannot do. I don't know. I don't know anything, really.
You cannot be expert enough to fight that fight.
No. But I did say, where do I kind of interiorly would say, well, I guess where I would start is like I'd have to say I'm willing to be bankrupt, which means I'll go through bankruptcy. And I was already bankrupt for many years, so it didn't really matter. So I was like, well, whatever I have to pay back, there's always a minimal amount, and
But the thing is, this whole episode that you're talking about, the whole episode, didn't emerge until after the man friend left. You went into a rage and then a depression, and then a couple of trips to the emergency room with where you thought that something was radically wrong,
right.
and it was because of the raging weed pulling fit that you went into, right? Let's say micro tears or whatever in your muscles. So
7 acres of tumbleweed.
Yeah. So whatever it was, you flip out and you're trying to work off your rage. So all of these are problem after problem after problem after problem, and then you're given like a miracle of a collapsing of time-space, but only after this series of things.
Yeah. Right. So, but I think that anybody who's listening, your life is full of miracles. They're full of holy instants. And if you take certain things, and it's good to recognize that they were there, because it can give you confidence that you're never alone, and that you can use that memory by going back and saying, well, I thought it was going to be a disaster, but look what it moved me to. Because it's all about growing in the knowledge of who and what you really are. And that means that sometimes we put ourselves through the paces, because there is a desire to know. And we don't know what that means, because God just wants us to wake up and remember who we are and reunite with him. That's all he wants. And in fact, that's all we really want, but we don't know it. We just want to remember, because in that remembrance is peace and happiness and joy. It's all there.
In the end, all you want to be is happy, and we don't know how to get there.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not about the things
and
of the world.
every holy instant is there to provide a gateway to that happiness. Every holy instant. But the holy instant itself is not necessarily happy. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Right, yeah. So in that one, it said, for there the problem will be answered. Attempt to solve no problems, but within the holy instant's surety. Meaning that the holy instant, the surety is that it's available in every instant. It's not like you have to get in a certain state of mind or anything else. The Course emphasizes the little willingness. And I can't tell you how important the little willingness is.
It says
and
here
how little it requires of us, and yet we don't do it. So that's what I have to say about that.
Well, it says that the holy instant is that other state of mind.
Right.
The holy instant is the other state of mind that you're looking for.
But you won't know that it's there for you unless you use your little willingness. You won't know it's available.
No, I know. The experience is... It's interesting that it says... Earlier, I was looking at the qualities, or the whatever it was, the first chapter, the first section.
Right, about the miracle.
The lists of the things, principles of miracles, I think it is. And it said that the miracle provides, it induces action.
Right.
Revelation it provides an experience. Revelation only brings experience. That's all revelation does. It doesn't induce action.
Right. It's a remembrance of the unity with God.
Right. But the miracle induces action.
Right.
And then it talked about miracles at the physical level versus the spiritual level, where physical miracles, and then there's the miracles at the spiritual level. So we have different kinds of miracles. But the idea of inducing action, and that's what was puzzling me about your situation, is that what out of all those experiences did something induce action according to the principles of miracles? And I couldn't find it. I couldn't identify it easily by going through the principles of miracles. But I did see that I think I'm wrong about what an action is. I think that's what I realized, that I'm wrong about what an action is according to the Course of Miracles. Course doesn't care if you open the book, close the book, go here, go there. That's all empty motions within the time and space. Action, I think, is freedom and release. The action is freedom and release. And you experience that freedom and release at certain points in the process. And I would say and it's possible that the miracle can be spread out, and it's not like, bam, there's the miracle, like that. It could be built out of different pieces.
Yeah, I can see that.
Last thing, and I apologize for going through this rigmarole. The book,
hopefully you enjoy the stories.
The book, The Course in Miracles, I'm convinced is a marvelous technical manual for happiness. A fantastic technical manual for happiness, where you have to recognize the terms, you want to identify. I can't do anything in China unless I speak Chinese. I'm going to have one problem after another. And so when I'm in this world, the Course is giving me, what is the language of the ego? What is the language of the world I'm in? And how does the holy instant lift me above and beyond that? And how do I recognize these different things? And how do I learn? How do I know I'm learning? Now, built into it is the fabulously wonderful experience of freedom and release that I've called miracles, but it says it induces action, which means that the only action is the spiritual action within myself that builds trust, builds
miracles
honesty.
Always involve, I would say, in the fractured thing, it involves more than just yourself. The miracle induces action, meaning that it had an effect on more than just me. I don't know who it had an effect on. I don't know what transpired by my freedom and release. So a miracle is never just for you. It's always had an effect seen or unseen, on the judge, on the old boyfriend, on you, because I was with you at the time, and various things that we can't understand. It does not.
On your whole family of origin, it would have an effect on everyone who shares your genetic structure, because I believe the genes are a communication device. So, I mean, I know that sounds weird.
But at any rate, a miracle is not, it's like it's my miracle. It's never just yours. It's always because the whole world is projection and reflection, and we only know our world based on our place from this space here, looking out and experiencing it back. But all of it is there for me to learn about myself, the truth about myself, if I'll use it for that. We don't want to sometimes. And so I don't know where I was going with that all of a sudden. But at any rate, I think that we just need to be aware that, first of all, it's available, it requires our willingness, and that we cannot solve it of ourselves, and that no question within the state of the world, which is what this little paragraph was about, nowhere outside a single simple question, nowhere outside is a simple question is ever asked. The world can only ask a double question. So from a worldly view, there's always multiplicity in what I think needs to be the answer. The answer needs to be that this, and this has to happen for me to feel like it has been a happy dream for me, And we don't know what we're asking then. We just want it to be a certain way. One with many answers can have no answers. So if we're looking for something that has many answers, then it's a non-answer.
Yeah, right.
None of them will do.
There's half a dozen strategies. You pare it down to one or two. You go with the best one. There's no answers there.
And you never feel quite satisfied with those answers. It's like, okay, well, I got this. That person got that. It's always in lawsuits. There's, where in divorce suits and everything else, this person gets this, and then you're all supposed to be sort of, quote, satisfied. No, it doesn't work out that way. None of them will do. It does not ask a question to be answered, but only to restate its point of view. So we already have a point of view, we restate it, and that point of view is what we want to have reinforced, and so that is not an answer. That is just a place where you stay in a place of conflict with yourself and with whoever else is involved in it.
You stay in the world.
Yeah, you stay in the world.
So paragraph 4.
Right.
All questions asked within this world are but a way of looking, not a question asked. A question asked in hate cannot be answered because it is an answer in itself. A double question asks and answers, both attesting the same thing in different forms. The world asks but one question. It is this: of these illusions, which of them is true? Which ones establish peace and offer joy? And which can bring escape from all the pain of which this world is made? Whatever form the question takes, its purpose is the same. It asks but to establish sin is real, and answers in the form of preference. Mm-hmm. Which sin do you prefer? That's the one that you should choose. The others aren't true. What can the body get that you would want the most of all? It is your servant and also your friend. But tell it what you want, and it will serve you lovingly and well. And this is not a question, for it tells you what you want and where to go for it. It leaves no room to question its beliefs, except that what it states takes question's form. This, along with so much stuff, this is so radically, psychologically, functionally accurate in the usual problem-solving strategy.
Right.
The architecture is based on it. You sit down and you go, you're going to put a building there. And you've already decided. The only question is, what shape is it going to take? Mm-hmm. And you call that problem-solving.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, maybe you don't want to put a building there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who decided that? Somebody else is deciding that. I'm not deciding that. So if you go into it just as an exercise, when I went into this paragraph 4 and just looked at all possible questions I could ask, what to do about my son, what I could do about my dental situation, what I could do about view counts, what I could do, whatever, thing, what to do about the foundation of the house, what to do about the upcoming weather event, all that kind of stuff. I recognize that every single question I asked is exactly got this anatomy of I'm only stating what
preference you want.
What preference is there? That's it. I mean,
Yeah, and we all have preferences. And then we blame that when our preferences haven't been met, we're not getting what we want, then our expectations are let down, and then we're upset because we didn't get what we wanted. But that's not what it's talking about.
Okay, so
that's the ways of the world, and that's the way the ego works.
Of these illusions, which of them is true? This is so beautiful. Out of all this stuff these options, these different floor plan options, these different, you're going to buy a speaker, the speaker options, this different car model, you're going to buy a different car model. Which is true? Out of all these illusions, which one is true? That's a crazy question, right? They're all illusions. So to that degree, they're all equal. Where does the holy instant follow in this? I'm going to get a car. Okay? Let's say I'm going to get a car. What should I get? Should I get the and I go through this thing about which ones I should buy. In that setting, what do you think? You tell me, where do you think the holy instant is that is the state of mind in which the answer is already there? Where's the holy instant in that search for a car? You're going to get a car. You are. The question isn't, do I need one or not? Well, it could be. But even at that, then what? So how would you deal with, let's say, the idea that, yes, you are going to make the commute, you are going to get a car, that's a done deal. So now, where's the holy instant?
Well, the holy instant is always in relationship to other. So it has to do with what in the process is helping me to know about the truth of myself. That's what really has to come out of it. What in this transaction, this process, it's with the salesperson, it's with the mortgage company, it's with whatever kind of thing, the lease company or whatever you're using for payment, or withdrawal of money from a bank, and then I can pay it with cash. And all of those relationships that pass through are, how am I feeling with each one? I was going to save that money for but now I'm using it here. And am I feeling like lousy about it? Am I feeling okay about it? Am I excited about it?
We don't want to confuse it with an exercise in intuition.
It's not.
It doesn't have to do with intuition.
No, because we have to make those kind of decisions. That's the way this world is made.
So let's do the car thing. How
well, why don't you tell me
what
right
happens
away?
next? I know she's telling me that I already got the answer because I keep asking the question. I don't really know. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk since I've been running my mouth so much.
I don't think so. I think I told a very long story.
Long story? Okay.
Yes.
Well, then the way I look at it is like this. I know I'm going to get a car. Okay, I know I'm going to get a car. I know that that's an action that I'm going to take, and that's where this illusory form is. It needs a car for XYZ reasons. And I even know I've got a certain sort of a budget and stuff like that. I know I want to spend X amount on it. These are all preconditions. None of them are miraculous. None of them are holy, right? It's just junk.
Yeah.
So I say, in that stuck place of fixed forms and conflicts and difficulties and rules and preferences, the holy instant is there to deliver me into another state of mind. When I go into the process and I go to the first dealership or I look online or whatever it is I'm looking at, I go in with the state of mind. I go in there with some trust, with some honesty about what I'm up to. Like, hey, I want a red Corvette. It's that time of life for me. I said, well, let's be honest with yourself. What do you think that's going to get you? I do a little bit of introspection, as you said, about what I'm thinking about cars, car models, the different solutions I have in my mind that are all choosing the best illusion, right, of the bunch. I say, that's all there, and there's not much I can do about it. But you know what? I know that the Holy Instant is there to deliver me to another level of decision making. And I start waiting. And I have some trust. And so then I go into it. And that's the little willingness. I'm into it with a little willingness. Now I go into the dealership or looking online or listening to a friend, and I have my ear open for what am I being told from this environment? What am I getting from the outside, or from an apparent dealer or an apparent ad in a paper or whatever? None of it's hitting me. None of it's hitting me. So as long as none of it's hitting me, I just let it be a null process. I don't make a radical decision based on nothing. I'm looking for the Holy Instant at this point. I'm looking for it, waiting for it. And then something happens, and I go, well, I got to make my decision. I like the way this person is presenting me. There's an honesty thing there. They make a good point. And I try to fall into it, and I look somewhere for a witness of some sort.
Right, because when, in decisions for acquiring, particularly in the ways of the world, like for the instance, when I was living, I was going to finally buy my first condo and everything else. And the real estate agent kept harking on me, well, you want a 2-bedroom. They resale better and everything else. And it all seemed outside of my financial thing. And real estate agents always say you can afford way more than that. I think that you can. That was my assessment of it. Because after all, I didn't have much furniture at the time and everything else. And so that means I'm going to have to fill up the place. And that means I need more money to do everything I want to do. So I said, first, I'm looking and I'm listening to them and everything else. And I said, no. And I actually put her completely on hold, and I decided not to look anymore. And I told her, I said, I don't think I'm ready to put that much money out there. I basically left it out there. And I basically decided to just keep renting. And I didn't want to do it. And all of a sudden she gave me a call, and she goes, hey, there's this really cute little place. It goes, it's only a 1-bedroom, but I thought of you. And I looked at it, and I knew instantly, boom, just like that it was, because all this time had passed and everything else. So in other words, again, I said, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I mean, I guess you could call that intuition or whatever, but I like when things come in a certain way that says it was an answer that came from somewhere else. And I've had several things in my life that that really I felt like it came out of left field a lot of times. It's like, wow, that was perfect. That was a perfect answer.
That would be a special function.
Yeah.
Because some people might have an internal voice. But I'm just saying that
right.
you know that about yourself. And
right.
you're going to get it because the Holy Spirit wants.
Right, to give me that kind of witness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't make quick decisions. It's not my thing. So I'll wait. I'll stick with stuff that doesn't really work for me for a while. So I can't say that that's a good thing or not. But at any rate, so what I would say to you is that something about the purchase would ring a certain way. Like when we bought this house, the weirdest thing, I'll just tell you. The Miracle on 34th Street, there's a cane in the corner, right? Well, in this house, there was a cane in the corner. Not only that, but there was also a picture of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. It was left behind, okay?
Santa Claus and Jesus bleeding tears.
Well, it kind of said it could be some struggle working through this big old house. But it's a gift. And that's how I read it. And I said, yeah, well, it's got a lot of work. That's our Garden of Gethsemane. I mean, it's work. But it's a gift because it was cheap and it was perfect in a way, So I like when witnesses come and speak to us. A lot of people use that, particularly in the New Age world. It seemed like people were always looking for something that said, yeah, that's the one. That's the thing, because it spoke to me. So we're designed to potentially look for them, I think. And so I would say to feel like the Holy Spirit and that the Holy Instant is working, there's a certain amount of surrender that says, I guess you're going to show me something about this particular purchase that shows me that your hand was in it. That's how I like to leave it. That shows me that your hand was in it, because
reaching another state of mind in which the answer is already there.
Yeah. Otherwise, I won't know it's from you, and it's just me having a preference, So I like to look for those. I don't know how other people work it, but that's how I do it.
Okay.
All right.
5?
Yeah, sure. Okay. 5. A pseudo question has no answer. It dictates the answer even as it asks. Thus is all questioning within the world a form of propaganda for itself. Just as the body's witnesses are but the senses from within itself, so are the answers to the questions of the world contained within the questions that are asked. Where answers represent the questions, they add nothing new and nothing has been learned. An honest question is a learning tool that asks for something that you do not know. It does not set conditions for response, but merely asks what the response should be. But no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends.
Again, the thing that I went through when I was reading this, and I don't know what else to say about it, is I studied these paragraphs against my usual decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of looked at the way I come to conclusions about different events in my life. As I said, there's different things that come up. It could be anything simple, like should I get a new microphone for this thing, or we need a better camera for better resolution, whatnot. Real simple. And then there's the tough ones. That are very, very impactful and that might be disastrous. Well, I'll say one. True confessions here. I'm in this process with a dentist, and I've talked about that enough. Mm-hmm. But I've got a real challenge in front of me with this, and it's a little bit scary. Maybe even, depending on the day, a lot scary, depending on what day it is, the appointment. And that is, I've got a couple of caps that have been in my face now for 50 years, right?
Yeah.
They're not great, but by God, they have served me for 50 years.
Right. They're right up front.
They're right up front.
He's knocked his teeth out twice.
It's my two front teeth. And they can't see what's underneath them. The dentist can't see because they're metal caps. So they can x-ray these things all they want. They don't know what's there. The different expert opinions I get is we might probably find decay underneath the caps, okay? Yeah. Now, I've got these little things keeping those caps connected to my jaw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I get into this process and they take off perfectly functional tooth that might have, 5, 10, 15, another 20 years in it, maybe the rest of my life, maybe not. I don't really know.
Right. It's going on, 50 years?
Yeah, right. The tooth is 48 years old.
Yeah.
So, but they assume, hey, you need a new model. Just right off the bat, they want to get rid of it from the expert side. But I'm sitting here going, wow, I've got a whole other echelon of problem if you got to pull the tooth out. Now I'm in a real problem. Now I'm talking about, I'm just saying, maybe like denture-like things and stuff like that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather chomp on some ugly 48-year-old teeth for another 20 years than be in a situation to where I'm stuck with this other thing. So I'm at a crossroads in terms of choices. And you can do research, and you can get testimonies, you can do this and this and this. Somewhere in this is a holy instant.
Yeah.
Somewhere in this is a holy instant where all problems are solved. And I have to engage, I think, the little willingness, but there's a certain degree of trust and certainly forgiveness. In other words, I'm getting forms that I don't like. I'm being led places I don't want to go. I end up in circumstances that I really didn't want to be in.
Right.
Or in the case of me holding on to, let's say, these teeth, am I holding on to my fears? You know? Is it really wisdom to hold on to them? What is this process about? The holy instant wants to take me to a higher level of decision making. So I'm not making stupid tooth decisions, and I'm making decisions about this other frame of mind in which all the answers are there.
Yeah.
Around this whole issue. And I don't really...
And it says an honest question is a learning tool that asks for something that you do not know. So it does not set conditions for response, but merely asks what the response should be. So with that, what do you think? It asks what the response should be. But no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends. So it's, in other words, in a way, it's saying, I have a question, I don't know what the question is. I have a question, but I don't know what the question is, that I would get the response, what the response should be. So in this particular paragraph, all I get from it is that in the ways of the world where we ask questions and we want to get answers, and we usually ask questions that will respond to that I'm getting the answer that I want, my preferences. But it's saying it does not set conditions for the response, but merely asks what the response should be. And yet it's telling us, but no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question that is going to get the response, the right response, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends.
Right now I'm in a situation where I'm going to have a dentist look at me and say, I'll do whatever you want to do.
Right.
This is what I think you should do. And I'll have to examine, like, what did you say about the response? I don't dictate.
You're going to merely ask what the response should be. In other words, we might have to go on and read the next paragraph, because it says only within the holy instant can an honest question honestly be asked.
If I go into this whole dental scene, that's a real deal in front of me. If I go into it as though it's a technical exercise or a medical technical exercise in doing what you can with what you've got, then I will just explore things that are already on the table, and there won't be any surprises.
Right.
It'll be, well, I ended up with one I didn't want, and it'll be that kind of thing. But it won't be a holy instant.
Right.
So as long as I look at it as medical technical, the holy instant will hide. I have to want to go to the holy instant.
Yeah, so only within the holy instant can an honest question honestly be asked. So that's bizarre, because how do I get to that holy instant? Again,
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and read?
Read 6.
Yeah, it's your time.
Only within the holy instant can an honest question honestly be asked. And from the meaning of the question does the meaningfulness of the answer come. Here is it possible to separate your wishes from the answer so it can be given you and also be received. The answer is provided everywhere, yet it is only here it can be heard. An honest answer asks no sacrifice because it answers questions truly asked. The questions of the world but ask of whom is sacrifice demanded, asking not if sacrifice is meaningful at all. And so, unless the answer tells of whom, it will remain unrecognized, unheard, and thus the question is preserved intact because it gave the answer to itself. The holy instant is the interval in which the mind is still enough to hear an answer that is not entailed within the question asked. It offers something new and different from the question. How could it be answered if it but repeats itself? I think this is pretty damned valuable information.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Because an honest answer asks no sacrifice, because it answers questions only truly asked, and the questions of the world but ask, of whom is sacrifice demanded? And then it also says, so unless the answer tells of whom, it will remain unrecognized, unheard, and thus the question is preserved intact because it gave the answer to itself.
Okay, and so the question that I would answer in the dentist's office is, who's going to sacrifice? Mm-hmm. In other words, is the dentist going to have to do practices that they know are substandard because I want to hang on to my 48-year-old cap?
Right.
Or am I going to sacrifice because I'm going to lose a perfectly functional tooth, and now they're going to have to do this other number on me?
Right.
Somebody's going to give.
Right.
And then what happens with money? Right. And then what happens going forward when they try to do these other processes? What happens?
Right, and those are all the things within the ways of the world.
Right, within the ways of the world. What happens when I see plan A turn into B, C, and hopefully not D, plan D? This is saying, until I say, no, sacrifice is required.
Yeah, no sacrifice is required.
We're not talking about sacrifice here. The dentist doesn't have to sacrifice.
Right, and you do not have to.
I don't have to sacrifice.
And in that, you're looking for the right kind of answer. The holy instant is the interval in which the mind is still enough to hear an answer that is not entailed within the question asked. And it offers something new and different. So those are the times when the willingness is to say, I don't know. I don't know what I need to do. I don't know. I want to do what is right for myself and my life at this time and everything else, but I don't really know what that is. Can you please show me that your hand, this is how I do it. I don't know. Do it whatever way it works for you. Can you give me an indication that your hand is in this process so that I will be led to the perfect answer for myself and for all involved? I don't know what the answer is, but I want to feel like your hand is in this. And that's my willingness. I'm willing to turn it over at that point.
Well, at that point, you're asking a real question because you're saying, I don't know what the answer is.
Right.
For true, you're not saying, I don't know which of these 6 things I need to do. You're saying, I don't know what the answer is.
Right. And sometimes you're led to another dentist, or sometimes you're led to, like, you're searching online and all of a sudden something pops up on the side and I say, I never heard of this. Where'd this kind of procedure come from?
Or maybe you're led to trust.
Yeah, complete trust.
Just trust.
Yeah. And
you just say, I came to the dentist. She says this. I look around the room for anything to anchor myself on and say, take me. I'm going with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. And let's say I see plan A fall apart, plan B fall apart, and I end up in plan C. And it's like, wow, man, this is worse than I possibly could have imagined. Mm-hmm. It's worse than I possibly could have imagined. I'm in another holy instant. Do you understand? I'm in another holy instant where I don't need to make conclusions about how I have sacrificed or been sacrificed or how I've been shafted or screwed by a lack of exploring options. I'm in another holy instant because I do not know. Because in the end...
Well, when you hand it over, you're in an I don't know.
Life here is not about great teeth. It's not here about jumping up and down. Life here is about using all physical things for the truth. To learn the truth, to live the truth, to be the truth.
Yeah.
And so if plan C, I have to say, wow, I'm in plan C. I wasn't in Hiroshima. Mm-hmm. In other words.
But I do find, I know.
But you want the miracle.
Yeah, I do find that when I'm saying I will go to the space of I don't know. And then the next time, if it was me in the chair or whatever else, I'd look around. I'd pay attention to the things that are being said. Maybe in the other room. Maybe something new got hung up on the wall. Maybe something, you're looking for an answer, an idea that the Holy Spirit is here with you and it's with you all the way. And that, so when things get scary for you, then you get some indication that you proceed with what the dentist says, or maybe not, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's something in you that recognizes that, oh, I'm supposed to proceed this way.
I have to have trust that there is an intelligence on the other side of this. This is the holy instant.
Yes.
I'm looking for an intelligence that will lead me through this thing, and I'm not getting good indications. And so I've got to want to see those indications, have trust that those indications are there, and proceed in those ways with my special function, which is to, I don't know, maybe go belly up or to do different things. But, I only can be what I am. I can't be something I'm not in the moment.
Right. And in all honesty, when it comes to his teeth and everything else, the whole thing where he's actually back at the dentist, where he hasn't gone for so long, took a terrible, terrible night of extreme tooth pain and everything else, and he had an emergency. So he ends up, the doctor that I go to, he wasn't available. The one that was available is this woman called Beatrice. It turns out that unlike where I go, there's a whole other dental plan option that is going to reduce whatever he has done by 40%. Okay, so it's huge for us. So there was this other thing that came up. So I considered that, in a way, was
an indication.
That's an indication that you're proceeding in the right direction, because first of all, it's scary. Second of all, it's a lot of money and those kinds of things.
I've gotten about a half a dozen indications that I'm in the right place doing the right thing. I've gotten about a half a dozen.
Yeah, so now it's about noticing those and trusting. And if you need more, then you just say, I'm still kind of scared. So could you give me one more sign that I'm, like, at least in this next step, that I'm proceeding correctly? I think that we do get answers. And so we just have to pay attention to our world. We just got to
function. I got to function, whether I'm functioning like a courtroom where, hey, show me your answers, or I think you're full of BS, talking to God, or having trust that I'm getting an answer here somewhere. I really, whatever your personality is, I think that's the deal, is to turn my decision-making into a quest for the truth, believe it or not.
Right, yeah, that has to be what it is. It's a quest for the truth. And it's always ultimately, as I said, to learn about the true identity of yourself, which therefore leads you to the true identity, or vice versa, of your brother. So the one who you're going to have the interactions with, whatever dentist or whatever those people are, your doctor, your neighbor, your siblings, your whatever it is in your life. And so they become the thing that you're having the interaction with that seems to be frightening. Then you go, well, the thing that I'm afraid of, it's talking to me. It's talking to me. So let it talk to me.
Go on to 7. I think we're right on top of it. I think we're over the target.
Okay. All right. That's good. Therefore, attempt to solve no problems in a world from which the answer has been barred, but bring the problem to the only place that holds the answer lovingly for you. Here are the answers that will solve your problems because they stand apart from them, and see what can be answered, what the question is. Within the world, the answers merely raise another question, though they leave the first unanswered. In the holy instant, you can bring the question to the answer and receive the answer that was made for you.
I think it's seeing the beauty of every juncture in time and space. There's a juncture in that I bring to it. I managed to bring my awareness to it. I talked about the dentist. You talked about your old relationship. We talked about these. There are junctures where I'm aware that I'm making decisions. And the idea is to become more and more aware of the decisions I'm making in the time space, so that I'm making more and more and more and more of those decisions, so that I can choose the holy instant in more and more and more junctures.
So the decision that you're making is to basically turn it over.
Well, it's turn it over, but there's another quality to it, which is like, okay, I get in my car.
Well, I call it, I don't know.
I know, but the thing is, at all these junctures, in all these situations and settings, I'm going through time-space routines that anchor me in what it's saying here. attempt to solve no problems in a world from which the answer has been barred. In other words, I'm living in a world where no answers are allowed to exist. Okay? That's the dental situation. That's the traffic on the way there. It's the trip home. It's the Novocaine. It's whatever. There's no answers there. So I have to decide that that's not the world I'm living in. And from the beginning, when I get in the car, I'm aware of a holy instant. I'm aware of a holy instant. I'm aware that I'm in a vehicle. This is an illusion of a vehicle, but I'm on my way, and I'm in this illusory. So get in that state of mind. I see the dentist office. I say, well, this represents all those answerless solutions, And I go, no, that's not where I am. That's not where I am. That's not where this is going. And you get out of the car, and you walk in there, and you sit down there, and you're in this state of looking like some lunatic, looking for a holy instant, looking for something beyond the time and space palette that's being offered to me. I'm looking at I'm sitting in the chair, and I'm just looking and waiting for them to say, Phil, you're up, and so I go back. Still, I'm waiting, and I have my conversations. I think it's a state of mind that's expectancy. It's an expectancy for the holy instant. It's an expectancy.
And a desire.
It says elsewhere in the book, I forget where that is.
Don't forget desire.
It's right, desire, but it's vigilance for the kingdom.
Yes.
Vigilance for the kingdom. I want the car trip, the getting out of the car, the sitting in the seat, the dealing with the receptionist, the going back there. Each juncture is not what it seems to be. Each juncture is the holy instant unfolding, and I'm in that holy instant as I go. And that will be the state of mind that's different, that allows a different decision to come out.
Right.
But it doesn't have anything to do with A, B, C, D.
Right.
Anyway, what do you think?
I think it's good.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed it. Our little personal world. Hope you enjoyed it. And
done?
Please like and subscribe. Do whatever you can to spread it around. We love it. Thank you.
Thanks.